The wedding hall in Lagos was shining like gold. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling. Fresh white roses covered every table. Expensive cars were parked outside the mansion. The guests were dressed in designer clothes. Diamonds sparkled everywhere. This was the wedding of Michael Okafor, the only son of one of the richest businessmen in Nigeria. Everyone was excited to see the bride. They expected a classy woman from a powerful family. But when the doors opened, silence fell. A young woman stepped inside. Her name was Amina. She wore a simple white dress, not designer, not shining. Her shoes looked old. Her hair was neat, but not styled like the other rich women. She had no heavy makeup, no diamond necklace. Whispers started immediately. Is that the bride? She looks like a village girl. Michael could do better. A group of rich ladies covered their mouths and laughed softly. Michael's mother, Mrs. Okafor, looked shocked. Her lips tightened. This is embarrassing, she muttered. Amina heard the whispers. She felt every word like a knife, but she kept walking. Her steps were calm. Her back was straight. Her eyes did not drop. She reached the stage. Michael stood there in his expensive suit. For a moment, he looked nervous. Then he smiled at her, and that smile made her breathe again. The priest began the ceremony, but the guests were not focused. They were busy gossiping. Her family didn't even decorate properly. Did you see her father's old car outside? She probably trapped him. Amina's father sat quietly in the back. His suit was old but clean. His hands were rough from years of hard work. He watched his daughter proudly. When it was time for vows, Amina spoke softly but clearly. I don't bring wealth into this marriage. I bring loyalty. I bring respect. I bring truth. Some guests rolled their eyes. Mrs. Okafor looked away. Then came the moment for wedding gifts. In this family, gifts were shown publicly. Rich relatives brought large gold boxes, expensive watches, diamond bracelets. One uncle even gifted a luxury car key. Applause filled the hall each time. Then someone whispered loudly, "Let's see what the poor bride brought." Laughter spread again. Amina stood still. Her father slowly stood up from his seat. In his hands was a small, simple wooden box. It looked old. The guests burst into open laughter. Is that a joke? Maybe it's groundnuts inside. Mrs. Okafor looked furious. This is unacceptable, she whispered. Michael looked confused. Amina gently took the wooden box from her father. Her hands trembled slightly. She looked at Michael. Before they laugh more, let me open it. When she opened the box, Michael's face suddenly changed completely. The smile disappeared. His hands began to shake. The hall went silent because inside that small wooden box was something no one expected, and it was worth more than everything in that room combined. The laughter slowly died. Everyone was trying to see inside the wooden box. Michael stared at it like he had seen a ghost. Inside the box was not gold, not diamonds, not money. It was an old hospital file, yellowed papers, a newborn hospital bracelet, and a photograph. The guests looked confused. Is this a joke? One woman whispered. Mrs. Okafor frowned. What nonsense is this? Amina's hands were steady now. Please read the name, she said softly to Michael. Michael picked up the hospital bracelet. His face turned pale. The name written on it was Michael Chinedu Okafor. The date of birth was exactly his birthday. The room became quiet. This is my birth record, Michael whispered. Mrs. Okafor stood up suddenly. That is impossible. Amina opened the hospital file. There was a fire in St. Mary's Hospital 27 years ago, she said calmly. Many records were lost. Some older guests nodded. They remembered the news. Michael swallowed hard. What does this have to do with you? Amina looked at him. My father worked at that hospital. Everyone turned to look at the quiet old man at the back. He was a nurse assistant. The night of the fire, 2 baby boys were born at the same time. The room felt heavy. One baby belonged to the Okafor family, and the other was my father's son. Gasps filled the hall. Mrs. Okafor's face lost color. What are you saying? She demanded. Amina slowly lifted the old photograph from the box. It showed 2 newborn babies placed side by side, both wearing hospital bracelets, both with almost identical birthmarks on their shoulders. Michael's breathing became fast. I have that birthmark, he whispered. Amina nodded. So did my father's baby. The hall was silent now. No one was laughing. My father saved one baby from the fire, Amina said. But in the smoke and chaos, the babies were switched. The words dropped like thunder. Mrs. Okafor grabbed her chair. That is a lie. My father tried to tell the hospital, Amina said. But your family had power, money, influence. No one listened. Michael looked at Amina, confused and shaken. Why tell me this now? He asked. Amina's eyes were full of emotion. Because I did not marry you for money. The guests leaned forward. I married you because I needed to give this back to you. She pointed to the file. You deserve the truth about who you really are. Whispers filled the hall again. If this is true, does that mean? Michael turned slowly toward his mother. Mother, is this possible? Mrs. Okafor looked terrified. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. From the back of the hall, Amina's father spoke for the first time. His voice was calm. There is something else in the box. Everyone froze. Michael slowly looked down again. At the very bottom of the wooden box was a sealed envelope with the official stamp of a modern DNA laboratory, and it had already been opened. Michael's hands trembled as he picked it up. The result page was inside. He scanned the paper. His eyes widened. The paper slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. One sentence was visible to everyone. Probability of biological relation to Mr. Okafor family, 0%. The room exploded with gasps. Mrs. Okafor screamed. And Michael looked at Amina like his whole world had just broken. The wedding hall felt like it was spinning. Guests stood up from their seats. Some were recording with their phones. Others were whispering loudly. This is a scandal. On the wedding day, Mrs. Okafor grabbed the DNA paper from the floor. This is fake, she shouted. This is manipulation. Michael was still frozen. Read the second page, Amina said quietly. Mrs. Okafor's hands were shaking as she flipped the paper. Her face slowly changed because the second test result was also there. Probability of biological relation between Michael and Mr. Adewale, Amina's father, was 99.9%. The hall went silent again. Michael looked at Amina's father. The old man did not look angry. He looked emotional. My son, he said softly. That word hit Michael harder than anything. Mrs. Okafor stepped back like she had been slapped. No, this cannot be happening. Amina walked closer to Michael. I found out 6 months ago, she said gently. Michael looked at her, hurt in his eyes. You knew? She nodded. I did not tell you because I wanted proof first. Why marry me then? His voice cracked. Amina's eyes filled with tears. Because I fell in love with you before I knew the truth. The room felt heavy. You deserve to know who you are, she continued. You deserve to choose your life, not live inside a lie. Guests who were laughing earlier now looked ashamed. The same women who mocked her were silent. One of the uncles suddenly stood up. If this is true, then who is the real Okafor heir? The question echoed in the hall. Everyone slowly turned to Mrs. Okafor. Her face was pale. Michael looked at her. Mother, tell me the truth. Tears filled her eyes. There was smoke everywhere that night, she whispered. I was weak. I had fainted. When they brought the baby, I just held him. Her voice broke. I never knew. The guests began whispering again. If Michael is not the heir, what happens to the company? What about the inheritance? Money, power, status. That was what they cared about. Michael looked around the room. Just minutes ago they were celebrating him. Now they were calculating his worth. His eyes slowly changed. The shock was turning into understanding. Amina stepped back. This is why I brought the gift publicly, she said. So no one can hide the truth again. Mrs. Okafor suddenly looked at Amina. Are you trying to take everything from us? Amina shook her head. No, her voice was calm. We are not here to take anything. Everyone looked confused. Amina's father walked forward slowly. We never wanted your money, he said. Michael turned toward him. Then what do you want? The old man looked at his son with deep emotion. I only wanted to see him once in my life. Silence filled the hall. I raised another man's son for 27 years, he continued. And I loved him because blood is not the only thing that makes a family. The guests felt uncomfortable. The laughter from earlier felt cruel. Michael's eyes were red. "So I have another family?" he whispered. Amina looked at him. "Yes. But that is not the biggest surprise today." The hall froze again. Mrs. Okafor slowly lifted her head. "What do you mean?" Amina looked toward the entrance of the wedding hall. The large doors were still closed. Her voice became serious. "The real Okafor biological son is here today." Gasps exploded across the room. The doors slowly began to open, and someone stepped inside. The massive wooden doors opened slowly. Every eye in the hall turned toward the entrance. A young man stepped inside. He wore a simple black suit, not expensive, not flashy, but clean and sharp. His posture was confident. His face looked almost exactly like Mr. Okafor in his younger photos. The resemblance was shocking. Gasps filled the hall. Mrs. Okafor held her chest. "No," she whispered. Michael stared at the stranger. It was like looking into a mirror of what he could have been. The young man walked forward calmly. His eyes were not greedy. They were steady. "My name is Daniel Adewale," he said clearly. Amina's father closed his eyes for a moment because that was the name of the baby he had raised. The hall felt frozen. Mr. Okafor, who had been silent until now, finally stood up from his seat. His voice was deep and powerful. "What is the meaning of this?" Amina stepped aside. "This is the other baby from that night." Daniel nodded. "I grew up in your house," he said, looking at Amina's father. "I always wondered why I never looked like anyone in my family." He slowly turned to Mr. Okafor. "And now I know why." The guests were whispering wildly. "This is insane." Two sons switched. "What will happen to the empire?" Mr. Okafor looked at Daniel carefully. "Do you have proof?" he asked coldly. Daniel pulled out a document from his jacket. "A DNA test done last month." He handed it over. The hall was silent again as Mr. Okafor read the results. His strong hands trembled slightly because the result was clear. Probability of biological relation, 99.9%. Mrs. Okafor began crying. "My son," she whispered, looking at Daniel. But Daniel did not move toward her. Instead, he looked at Michael. The two men stood face to face, one raised in wealth, one raised in struggle. Michael spoke first. "So you're the real heir." Daniel's expression did not change. "I did not come for money." That surprised everyone. "I came because she told me the truth should not stay hidden." He nodded toward Amina. The guests turned to her again. Whispers filled the air. "She planned all this?" "She destroyed the wedding." But Amina did not look guilty. She looked strong. Mr. Okafor took a deep breath. "If this is true," he said slowly, "then my company, my name, my legacy belongs to him." The room exploded in noise. Some relatives looked excited. Others looked worried. Michael felt something strange, not anger, not jealousy, just clarity. He looked around the hall again. He saw the same people who laughed at Amina, the same people now staring at Daniel like he was gold. He understood something painful. They never cared about him. They cared about power. Daniel suddenly spoke again. "There is something else." The room quieted once more. Mr. Okafor frowned. "What now?" Daniel's jaw tightened. The hospital fire was not an accident. The air felt heavy. Mrs. Okafor stopped crying. Mr. Okafor's face darkened. "What are you saying?" he asked slowly. Daniel looked directly at him. "I found old reports, hidden reports." He pulled out another envelope. "And someone in this family started that fire." Shock spread across every face. Michael felt his heart pounding. Amina's eyes widened slightly. Even she did not expect this. Daniel's voice was firm. "And I know who did it." The hall went deadly silent because the name he was about to say would destroy everything. The entire hall was frozen. Daniel held the envelope in his hand like a sword. His eyes were fixed on Mr. Okafor. "I know who caused the fire that night," Daniel said slowly. Every guest leaned in. Even the richest relatives who had been whispering and judging just minutes ago went silent. Mrs. Okafor's face turned pale. Her lips trembled. "Daniel, what are you saying?" she whispered. Daniel opened the envelope carefully. Inside were yellowed papers, old hospital reports, memos, and letters. Some of them had her signature. My mother, Mrs. Okafor gasped, realizing what Daniel was holding. Michael's jaw dropped. He stepped back. Mother? You caused the fire. Mrs. Okafor tried to speak, but no words came out. Her hands shook violently. Amina walked forward, calm but firm. The truth will always come out. You can't hide it anymore. Mr. Okafor's eyes were dark with anger. He stared at his wife. Is this true? Mrs. Okafor's shoulders sagged. I was desperate. I didn't want the family name to weaken. I thought if something went wrong with the birth, we could fix it. I never thought it would go this far. Gasps filled the hall. Some relatives whispered, some muttered curses. Michael felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and sadness. All the laughter from the wedding earlier echoed in his mind. The same people who mocked Amina were now staring in shock at the truth. Daniel looked at the papers again. The fire was deliberate. Records show tampering. I survived because my father, Mr. Adewale, saved me and your son. Mrs. Okafor's face fell. You survived because he took you? Yes, Daniel said calmly. And now, after all these years, the truth is here. Michael clenched his fists. He looked at Amina. You planned this whole revelation? Amina shook her head. I only wanted him to know the truth. Nothing more. The gift was the key. The hall was buzzing with whispers. She outsmarted the richest family in Lagos. One older uncle muttered, This girl is not just clever, she's fearless. Daniel turned to Michael. I don't want your wealth. I don't want revenge. I only wanted clarity, justice, the truth to finally be known. Michael's eyes softened. He nodded slowly. Then we both know what really matters now. Mrs. Okafor sank into her chair, tears streaming. What have I done? Amina stepped beside Michael. It's not just about them. Today is a new beginning. Michael looked around. The room felt heavy, yet strangely freeing. The laughter from before seemed ridiculous now. Daniel folded the papers neatly. Some may call this drama. Some may call it fate. But we all have choices. Today I choose forgiveness. The guests were stunned. A few were crying quietly. Some were shaking their heads in disbelief. Michael finally smiled faintly at Amina. You didn't just save me from lies. You saved everyone from the truth being buried forever. Amina's eyes glimmered. Truth is more powerful than wealth, more powerful than laughter, and more powerful than betrayal. Outside the hall, the sun was beginning to set. The golden light spilled into the room, catching on the crystal chandeliers, casting shadows that felt symbolic, shadows of the past leaving room for the future. Michael looked at Daniel. Are you ready to meet the family you lost? Daniel nodded slowly. Yes, but only if we all start fresh. Amina whispered softly to Michael, This is only the beginning, not the end. The crowd remained silent. The tension was electric. Every heart in that room was racing. Everyone now knew the wedding was not just a ceremony. It was the unveiling of secrets that would change lives forever. The wedding hall was heavy with silence. Mrs. Okafor sat trembling, staring at her hands. She had never felt this powerless in her life. All her carefully built walls of wealth and influence had crumbled in a single afternoon. Michael walked slowly toward his mother. His face was a mixture of anger, sorrow, and understanding. Mother, you lied. You betrayed me, and for what? Tears streamed down her face. I only wanted to protect the family. I didn't want shame to touch our name. Michael shook his head. Protect? By burning babies' lives? By switching us? By letting Daniel grow thinking he was someone else. The guests murmured among themselves. Some covered their mouths in shock. The rich ladies who had laughed at Amina earlier were now pale and silent. Daniel stepped forward. His calmness was magnetic. It's not about blame. It's about truth and justice and maybe forgiveness. Mrs. Okafor gasped. Forgive? How can I expect forgiveness? Michael's eyes softened slightly. Because holding anger will destroy us. But today is different. Amina stepped closer to Michael. You see, Michael, money and power don't define family. Loyalty, courage, love, these are what matter, even if it comes from someone who is considered poor. Michael looked at her, admiration in his eyes. "You were more than I ever imagined. You didn't just marry me, you saved me from a lie I lived my whole life." Daniel's voice rang out again. "I never wanted this confrontation. I only wanted to meet my real family, to know who I truly am, and to see Michael, the man I was supposed to grow up alongside, for real." The room was heavy. Guests were whispering feverishly. Everyone wanted to see the reactions. Mr. Okafor finally spoke. His voice strong but tinged with regret. "I thought protecting my son meant hiding the truth. I was wrong. Both of you deserve your real lives, and maybe the family we lost along the way can be found again." Michael's mother wept openly. "I am so sorry. I cannot undo what I did, but I can try to make it right." Michael nodded slowly. "Start by being honest and stop judging people by their wealth. That lesson is too late for me, but maybe it can save someone else." Amina placed her hand on Michael's arm. "You're stronger than you think." And today, the laughter is gone. Only the truth remains. Then Daniel did something unexpected. He stepped forward toward Mrs. Okafor and bowed slightly. "I forgive you because hate would never honor what we've lost. And today, I choose a new beginning." Gasps echoed. The hall was stunned. No one expected this. Not the guests, not Michael, not even Amina. Mrs. Okafor covered her face. "I don't deserve this, yet I feel relief." Michael took a deep breath. "We all have our sins and our choices. Today, we can choose differently." Amina whispered softly, almost to herself. The poor bride laughed last, but this time, she brought the light. The golden chandeliers glimmered in the sunset light. Shadows of the past slowly faded. The guests could feel it, the air was lighter. The wedding that had started with mockery had turned into something sacred. Then Daniel's eyes moved to the crowd. "There is one more thing everyone must see." The wedding gift was not just a box. It was the key to truth. And truth can change everything. Everyone leaned forward, hearts racing. Amina's smile was subtle but fierce. She knew what was coming next. The room was about to witness the final twist that no one expected. The room was still. Every guest leaned forward, waiting. Amina walked slowly to the center of the hall. The wooden box had been opened, the DNA results revealed, the truth about the fire exposed. But there was one last secret, the wedding gift itself. Michael looked at her. "What is it?" Amina smiled softly. The gift was never about money. It was about justice, love, and legacy. She turned to Daniel. "I need your help for this." Daniel nodded. Together, they reached into the box again. At the very bottom, there was a smaller envelope, golden, elegant, and sealed with wax. Michael's eyes widened. "Another gift?" Amina opened it carefully. Inside was a legal document. The guests leaned in closer. It was a will from the late patriarch of the Okafor family, Michael's grandfather. It stated, "The true heir to the Okafor legacy is not determined by wealth, but by integrity, courage, and loyalty. If circumstances of birth are revealed, the heir who demonstrates heart above money shall inherit." The room erupted in whispers. Mrs. Okafor's hands flew to her face. "This is impossible." Amina looked at Michael. "You see, the grandfather knew things might go wrong. He trusted the heart, not just blood." Michael's lips parted. He felt a mix of shock and relief. He was not the heir by birth, but he was by heart. Daniel stepped forward. "And I agree. Michael has shown integrity, forgiveness, and courage. He deserves this legacy." Gasps filled the hall again. The guests were speechless. Some whispered, "She's not poor, she's genius." Mrs. Okafor finally spoke, voice trembling. "So all these years, everything, it doesn't matter?" Michael took a deep breath. "Blood matters, but love and honor matter more. Today, the legacy continues the right way." Daniel smiled faintly. "I will walk alongside him, not for power, but to ensure the family's name means something again." Michael turned to Amina. "You gave me everything, not just truth, but life." Amina blushed, tears in her eyes. The poor bride may have arrived laughed at, but she leaves victorious. Mrs. Okafor sank into her chair, tears streaming. "I never expected this, not from a poor girl." Guests who had mocked her were now embarrassed, ashamed, and in awe. Michael held Amina's hands. Your wedding gift is more valuable than all gold in this hall. Amina smiled. Sometimes the simplest gift is the most powerful. Then Daniel stepped forward, looking at everyone. Let this wedding be a lesson. Wealth can create laughter, but only love and courage can create respect. Remember that. The room stayed silent. Slowly, applause began. One by one, everyone clapped, some in awe, some in relief, and some in admiration. Mrs. Okafor finally stood, wiping her tears. She looked at Amina and nodded slowly. You have saved this family, and my heart, too. Michael embraced Amina tightly. This is the happiest day of my life. As the sun set through the grand chandeliers, the wedding hall was filled not with laughter at the poor bride, but with respect, love, and admiration. The poor bride had delivered the ultimate wedding gift: truth, courage, and a legacy restored. The grand hall was quiet, but the energy had shifted. What began as ridicule had transformed into awe. The rich guests who laughed at Amina now bowed their heads in respect. The whispers that once mocked her had turned into praise. Mrs. Okafor, still shaking, stepped toward her son. Michael, I was wrong. I judged everything by wealth and status. I am sorry. Michael smiled gently, squeezing her hand. It's over now, Mother. Today, we all learned what truly matters. Daniel looked at Michael. I forgive everything. I hope we can rebuild this family together. Michael nodded. Together. Amina, standing beside him, felt tears sting her eyes. This was more than a wedding. This was justice. This was truth. This was love conquering greed. Then a servant approached with a large box covered in silk. Everyone turned to see what it was. Amina's father took a deep breath. There is one more gift. He opened it slowly. Inside were dozens of small envelopes. Each one contained a scholarship certificate, a donation letter, or a fund for orphaned children across Lagos. The crowd gasped. She planned this. Amina stepped forward. This gift is for those who never have a chance, for those who are poor, laughed at, or overlooked. Today, my life has changed, but I haven't forgotten those who are still struggling. Michael hugged her tightly. You are the richest in the room, not because of wealth, but because of heart. Daniel smiled and placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. Today, we start a new chapter. One where family is more than blood and courage is more than gold. The guests began applauding. Slowly, everyone rose to their feet, cheering for the bride who had transformed a mocking crowd into believers of integrity, love, and compassion. Mrs. Okafor, wiping her tears, approached Amina. You saved my family and my son. You were more than I ever imagined. Amina smiled softly. I only did what was right. The rest is up to all of us. Michael looked around the hall. The sunset streamed through the chandeliers, casting a warm golden glow on everyone. He turned to Amina. From the moment you walked in, I never laughed at you. Now I will never stop admiring you. Tears of happiness fell down Amina's cheeks. The moment was pure magic. Then Daniel raised his glass. To truth, courage, and love. May this family never forget what we learned today. The entire hall echoed in applause. Glasses clinked. Smiles spread. Even the richest, proudest guests realized that today, money had nothing to do with happiness. Everyone who had laughed at the poor bride realized she had not just survived ridicule, she had rewritten destiny. The laughter returned, but this time it was joyous. Michael whispered to Amina, your wedding gift is unforgettable. Amina smiled. Some gifts are invisible until the world sees their worth. As the hall erupted into celebration, one thing was clear. This wedding would be remembered forever, not for luxury, not for wealth, but for heart, courage, and the triumph of truth. The poor bride had won everything. Your subscribe and like can make a huge difference for me. It motivates me to keep putting my heart into every story I create. So please support and show your love by subscribing.